Ellen rolled onto her back, the warmth of the morning sun pressing against her closed eyelids. She stirred slightly, shifting closer to the familiar body beside her, seeking its comforting heat. Her head ached dully, and her mouth felt like sandpaper. Too many drinks last night. God, what a night. They'd gone at it for hours, tangled in sheets, lost in the reckless haze of alcohol and passion. Even now, her limbs felt heavy with exhaustion, her bladder insistent, but she wasn't ready to move just yet. With a sigh, she finally cracked her eyes open, pushing herself up into a sitting position. That was when she saw him, the man sitting across the room in the chair. "Good morning," Dave said, his voice light, almost cheerful. Ellen froze. Her mind struggled to catch up. How? Her gaze darted between the man in the chair and the man in bed beside her. The familiar, sleepy warmth she'd been nestled against all night was not her husband. It was Mike. Her breath caught in her throat. Slowly, as if in a dream, she reached back, fingers trembling, until they brushed against the bare shoulder beside her. Panic shot through her veins like ice water. "Mike," she hissed, shaking him frantically. "Get up. It's Dave. He's back." Mike groaned, shifting sluggishly before coming to sudden, sharp consciousness. He twisted around, eyes widening in sheer horror as they locked onto Dave's face. "Mike, hi," Dave greeted, his tone unervingly casual. "Did you have a good night?" He leaned back in the chair, smiling in a way that made Ellen's stomach churn. Ellen sure knows how to keep a man busy. Like the Energizer Bunny. Just keeps going and going, huh? Ellen's face burned with shame. She clutched the sheets tighter around herself, heart hammering. "Dave," she said, voice weak, barely above a whisper. You weren't supposed to be back until tomorrow." Dave laughed. "Yeah, that's what you thought, right? You usually plan these things better. Wouldn't have risked leaving him here overnight if you knew I was coming home early." His eyes gleamed with something dark. "The job in Cincinnati finished up quicker than expected. So here I am." His gaze flicked to Mike, who was scrambling to find his clothes, his hands shaking as he grabbed his boxers from the floor. "How's your son, Andy, by the way?" Dave continued conversationally. "Still working on that software project?" Mike said nothing. His face had gone pale. Dave chuckled, shaking his head. "Don't bother, Mike. You're dead in the water." Then, with slow, deliberate movements, Dave pulled out his phone. He pressed a button and lifted it to his ear. "Hi, Barbara." "Yeah, just like I said. You can come in, the front door's open." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Ellen stared at him, her breath coming in short, ragged gasps. Mike fumbled with his jeans, his hands visibly trembling. Then the sound of hurried footsteps. Barbara burst into the room like a hurricane, her face twisted in fury. "Motherfucker!" she screamed, launching herself at Mike. He barely had time to raise his arms before she swung her oversized purse at him, landing blow after blow. He stumbled backward, hands flying up to shield himself, but she was relentless, her strikes catching his forehead, his arms, his shoulders. Blood trickled from a cut on his temple. "Don't even think about coming home." Barbara spat, her voice shaking with rage. "My brothers will drop your shit off at your parents' house this weekend. Until then, you can wear the same damn clothes you put on to come here and screw around." She turned sharply to Dave, her face still livid, but her expression softened. "Thanks again, Dave." "I'm sorry." Dave shrugged. "Not your fault, Barb." She exhaled sharply, gave him a quick peck on the cheek, and stormed out of the room, leaving Mike standing there, shoulders slumped, blood dripping onto his shirt. "Oh God," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "What am I going to do now?" Ellen, still dazed, grabbed her robe and rushed to the bathroom, avoiding Dave's gaze. She slammed the door behind her, the sound of running water soon filling the silence. Dave turned back to Mike, his easygoing demeanor returning. "Well, Mike," he said, standing up and stretching, "I suggest you get dressed and get out of here. You probably don't feel very awake right now, But tonight's going to be worse, when you realize your house isn't yours anymore. He smirked. Barbara won't let you back in. Maybe head to the theater. Who knows, maybe Barbara will be there too. Or maybe she'll be too busy packing up all your shit. Mike didn't respond. He kept his head down, quickly gathering his clothes and making a swift, humiliated exit. When Ellen finally emerged from the bathroom, freshly showered and wrapped in a robe, the room was empty. She hesitated before stepping downstairs, her heart pounding. Dave was in the kitchen, calmly sipping coffee, a plate of scrambled eggs and toast in front of him. Without a word, he slid a cup toward her. She sat down hesitantly, staring at him, her stomach twisted in knots. Dave. I'm so awful, she whispered. He smiled at her. Strange, knowing smile. It's all right, Ellen. Really? He let out a small chuckle. What a morning, huh? She blinked, confused. No, Dave, sorry. I'm so ashamed that you found out like this. Silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Finally, she swallowed hard. What are you going to do? Dave tilted his head, considering. Then he laughed. Me? Nothing. He shrugged. It's not up to me to fix this, Ellen. It's up to you. I can explain, she stammered. I know it's awful, but I swear it was the first time. Stop. His voice cut through the air like a knife. His smile disappeared. Just don't, he said, shaking his head. Spare me the bullshit. Ellen fell silent. Dave sighed, leaning back. You know, I've known about you and Mike for over 6 weeks now. She flinched. It was a beautiful day. Early May. I was feeling restless at work, so I went for a walk. Took the path past the old Doubleday school. And there you two were. On a blanket. In the woods. He exhaled sharply. Want to see pictures? Ellen shook her head, her face pale. I don't know why I was even surprised, Dave mused, setting his phone down. You always were predictable. Hell, this is the same place I caught you with Mr. Henderson, the gym teacher, before we were even engaged. Remember that? His eyes darkened. You said he was just teaching you how to do somersaults, except your skirt was up, and your boobs were hanging out of your shirt. Ellen's breath hitched. Dave slammed his hand on the table, making her jump. You couldn't even find a new place to cheat on me? Silence. Then, suddenly he chuckled. The coldness in his eyes sent a chill down her spine. You know, he said, standing up, that was the first time in 6 years I actually felt good about signing that prenup my dad insisted on. He saw right through you. He pulled out his phone again. Hi, Rita. Yeah, everything's set. See you in half an hour. Ellen's stomach twisted. Dave, I'm so sorry, she choked. I've been such an idiot. He exhaled, grabbing his coat. Then he placed a large envelope on the table in front of her. Leaning in, he touched her cheek, almost gently. I don't have anything else to say, he murmured. And with that he walked out the door.